We played what you said about the speaker vote next month. You said you think that President-elect Trump will ultimately decide who the next speaker will be. But I'm wondering, is that really how it's supposed to work?
Well, Washington, ma'am, you see all these political scientists, and there's a reason they're not in Congress, because it's all just theory, and politics plays into it. And Donald J. Trump is the biggest dog in the pound right now. And I think he's going to make a huge decision in this, and he will sway a lot of people.
But it's interesting, you yourself have said that you're going to make the decision that you want to make. But do you think that President-elect Trump has absolute control over the House conference to pick a speaker, given that 38 House Republicans, including yourself, just defied him on the debt limit?
No, ma'am. Actually, with the debt limit, we were hoping we'd have some expenditure reduction so we could kind of meet in the middle on that. And as far as that goes, President Trump, I think he understands the Constitution very well, and he understands he's elected president, not emperor. And he's a bargainer and a negotiator. When I raised the speed limit in Tennessee in the state legislature, I think I asked for 85 and I took 70. So he is literally the art of the deal. He gets it.
Yeah. Well, we've seen everyone from President-elect Trump to his son to Elon Musk threaten to primary challenge Republican lawmakers who don't fall in line behind Trump. You haven't even taken your seats yet in the new Congress. Do you see these threats as empty? How worried are you yourself about maybe being primaried if you don't line up with everything that Donald Trump wants you to do?
Well, I'd be lying to you if that wasn't in the back of my mind. But the reality is I represent the hardworking people of East Tennessee, the 2nd Congressional District, and they're the ones who make those decisions for me, I guess you could say. But again, let's look at the reality. What are we going to have, a 3-person majority or a 5-person majority, whatever? A good case of the flu, ma'am, and the Democrats are back in the majority. So I think the reality is that he knows he's going to have to work with us. And good and well, there's not a Democrat out there that will work with President Trump unless they switch parties.
Yeah, well, I also want to point out that in that CNN interview that you said that you want Speaker Johnson to prove that he is serious about cutting spending. We are reporting that there's a handshake agreement, a gentleman's agreement, that Congress will raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion and cut $2.5 trillion in spending in a reconciliation package next year. We've seen deals like this in the past, but how much do you trust the conference leadership and your actual colleagues to follow through on this?
Well, as I was quoted before, ma'am, they asked me about the gentleman's agreement, and I said, I've been in Washington 6 years, and there's not very many gentlemen up here. That's worth the paper it's written on, and obviously it wasn't even written on any paper. So I think that answers itself. But I think we're in a bargaining stage in this thing. I think we're $36 trillion in debt. Every 100 days we add another $1 trillion. And we've got to get serious about it. And we've got to get serious about our economy, because we will fall off that cliff. There's a reason that people this Christmas season are paying $600 or more dollars a month just to survive. That's not for anything extravagant. So I think America understands it, and they are currently watching our spending, and as they should. And this bill that we passed, it had, let's see, what was it? $5 billion for submarines. It had $100 million in there for the Coast Guard, money for other military groups. And we just passed the NDAA 2 weeks ago. The National Defense Authorization Act was $6 billion additional dollars, more than was even originally asked for. And they haven't passed their budgets have run over for the last 8 years. So, I just think that we are getting a little bit past our skis on this, and we need to pull back, and America's demanding that.
Yeah. And you talk about, your concern for the national debt. I want to put up some of the various tax cuts Trump floated on the campaign trail. That's a lot of lost revenue over the next decade. Are you worried at all about the national debt going up if President-elect Trump gets his way with all of the things that he wants to do?
Well, I've found that when you give people more of their money back, or don't steal more of it in the form of taxation, that they don't stick it under their bed or in a pillow, ma'am. They put it in the bank, and the banks loan it back out. We grow the economy that way. I've seen that time and time again. I just don't see cutting working people's taxes as a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. We need to get more of our money home, And I think with Doge, if we can seriously follow through with that, not just the executive orders, but Congress legitimately gets some guts and starts doing some things that we said we're going to do, not just just shuffling the deck a little bit, but actually doing some things.
Yeah. I also want to ask you about another topic. Yesterday, the House Ethics Committee released its report on Matt Gaetz. He backed his nomination for Attorney General, though Gaetz later withdrew from consideration. Having seen the context of this report now, would you have trusted him to lead the Justice Department?
I haven't read the report, but it's just that, ma'am. It's just an investigation. It's not an indictment. And if you remember, the Biden Justice Department, you can't name me one person in Washington, D.C. or in this country that they hate with incredible vitriol than Matt Gaetz. Yet they chose not to pursue prosecution against him. They ruled that that the witnesses that were, I believe, mentioned in this report were not legitimate. So I would say just that, and I would say too, sometimes it's better to leave lying dogs lying, ma'am, because they're sleeping dogs. Let them lie, because I think what you're going to see now is and I'm going to be one of those demanding every report they have to be released. I want to know what hush money was paid out by the taxpayers and what else is going on. And I think it behooves you all in the legacy media to start FOIA-ing those things. Find out how many millions were paid out by very powerful, influential members of Congress.
But just to be quick,
now holding judgment.
Congressman, do you trust the work of the House Ethics Committee? I mean, the chairman's a Republican.
Yes, ma'am, but if you remember, it was leaked apparently, we were told by the Democrat ranking member, and there were actually talks of charges being brought up against that person. Now, they're not coming back to Congress, from what I understand, but still, it was just that. It was just an investigation. And when the Justice Department, the most powerful legal entity in the world, in the entire world, decided not to pursue a case against Matt Gaetz, that should tell you something.
That's right, but I should just note that the committee, which is bipartisan and again chaired by a Republican, did put out the report. But Congressman Burchett, I really appreciate you coming on this Christmas Eve. I hope you have a really happy holiday season.
Ma'am, I hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and all my Jewish friends out there, I hope you all have a wonderful Hanukkah.
Thank you. Wait.